So imposter syndrome is usually because of the belief I'm not good enough and I don't belong. Usually people that struggle with imposter syndrome have had some sort of a past experience. You validate why it's there.
Oh, okay.
For example, sometimes it's you're trying something for the first time. You just got qualified or you're the only black person in the room. So the imposter syndrome is valid, right? You feel like, I'm the only black person, I'm the only young person. So you say, okay, this is where these emotions are coming from. Then you say, but that doesn't change that I deserve to be in the room, right? I have worked hard, I'm qualified enough, and the fact that I'm in the room means I deserve to be in the room.
Hello. Welcome to Business Done Right. My name is Yvette Aloe, and as you know it, I am your favorite business coach. So if you just tuned in for the first time or you are coming back to view the episodes but you haven't clicked the subscribe button, please make sure that you click subscribe. But perhaps you're still not sure is this really the podcast for me? Do I want to subscribe? Listen until the very end of this episode and I can guarantee you will definitely subscribe, because what I do here in studio is making sure I bring you amazing guests who share their experiences and that can actually help you develop not only as an individual, but I know if you're an entrepreneur, you are in your career space and you're trying to grow, you can't do it alone, right? That is why we bring people that developing you. So why should you also listen to this episode or subscribe to this podcast? So I'm an entrepreneur and I've been an entrepreneur for the past 10 years. And as we all know, building a business from scratch is not easy. So there's the ups, the downs, the lows, the challenges, some businesses that I've tried that failed, some I've even forgotten. And I truly believe that I've garnered experience, my lived experiences, and I want to share them with you. Another thing, when I was starting my journey, I had a lot of doubts about myself, self-doubts. Am I good enough? Am I really going to be successful? Will this really happen? Right? And I can believe nobody is spared from those kinds of thoughts and feelings. And therefore, this podcast is to really say, I see you. I've been where you are at. A lot of us experience those kinds of challenges. Therefore, we are forming a community of other entrepreneurs through this podcast that you can just listen to and be inspired by them. Perhaps you're also starting a business or you're already in your entrepreneurship journey and you have no idea what you're doing. You wake up every day and you're like, Kifilwe, I'm trying, but I don't know what I'm doing. This is the podcast where you're going to learn about business, how you can grow your business, and how you can be successful. Thank you so much. And today I am not alone as per usual. I've got an amazing guest that I've been following on social media. Her conversations when she speaks, she inspires me so much. And I've always said, you know what? I want to speak to this lady and I want to, for myself, not necessarily just to learn about what she does, for myself, because I think the conversations that she speaks about, the work that she does, every one of us need her in our lives. Her name is Yvette Aloe. Right? She's an award-winning life and leadership coach, an LLP, what we call neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, wellness educator, business strategist, motivational speaker, and an author of the self-help and healing book, Living Consciously. She has such significant reach online, right, on her digital platforms, and she also hosts personal and business development workshops. Her presence spans radio and TV in South Africa from SAFM, Metro FM, Radio 2000, as well as a strong digital engagement via her platforms like Instagram and TikTok. Ma'am Yvette, over to you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I want you to introduce yourself, because maybe I introduced you and I did not do justice. Or maybe you're saying, Kifilo, some of the things that you said, it's not me. Where did you get that from? Right? So please tell us and the guests who you are, the viewers, who you are, right? And why they should stick around and listen to this episode.
So much pressure. So I think you did justice when you introduced me. I help people heal and grow in their personal lives, business and as leaders. I have been doing this for 8 years. And, I always say I'm the person that you call when you feel overwhelmed or you feel stuck and you don't know how to move forward. Or you look back to your past and you notice some past experiences that you want to let go of. And you need somebody to assist you in letting go of those past experiences. I've worked with people from all walks of life. And I think I'm at the point where I just found the right way to really capture what it is that I do, because it spears into so many spaces. So I think you did it justice. We're in all the spaces, and anybody who wants to grow as an individual, then I'm the person that you call.
And outside of the work, and we're gonna get into some deep conversations outside of the work that you do, anything interesting about Yvette that's not part of your work, just about you, who you are outside of the work that you do?
I think what would be interesting, I think a lot of times when I meet people face to face, today I'm very calm. I've had a long week, but a lot of times when I meet people, they're always like, "Oh, you're so goofy." I expected you to be like this very serious person.
Yeah.
It's like when you walk into the room, especially because I'm in the wellness space and healing space, along with the personal development space, it comes with the assumption of what my personality is like, So when they meet me, when I'm in my comfortable self, when I'm not speaking on a platform, and doing events and stuff like that, they're like, "Oh, Kanti, this is who you are." So I would say that would be something that's interesting, that I'm just myself wherever I go. And that's it.
Love that. And on a normal Saturday, when you're not working, what are you doing? What are you up to?
I am spending time with my toddler. She is past a year old, and I think that's probably my favorite thing to do. If I'm not doing that, I am in like my book club or I'm playing tennis. So those are the things that I do on my weekends. Otherwise, I'm probably trying to spend time by myself. So that's pretty much it.
All right. And any exciting projects that you are currently working on?
Sure. There's always an exciting project, but I can't disclose all of them until they're ready to be launched.
Yeah.
I think the one exciting thing, because I have been on a very long maternity leave. I've been on maternity leave for over a year. And I recently decided, let me go back to work because my little one is a bit grown. So I've thrown myself completely into motherhood. And I think... So I just moved into a new office space in Centurion, and it's been fun, I think, for me, like just from a self-expression perspective, setting up shop, like decorating the space in the way that I want, changing the way that I do coaching as well, because obviously after being away from it for so long, well, it feels like a very long time, for over a year, I've changed as a person. So expressing it in that regard, so I think for me, that's a really exciting season, just getting to express my work in a different way, in a different space, and learning to balance all of that with life. That's actually the most beautiful project that I'm working on right now, is understanding who I am as a mom, understanding who I am again, as a person who has birthed the whole human, and settling into my own life again, because I really threw myself into motherhood. So, yeah.
Interesting, because I'm going to ask you this. I'm not a mother yet, so I don't have children. And you're saying you... learning who you are now since you become a mom, you're in your motherhood era, if we can call it that. Yes. What has changed before being a mother? How were you like that now you're a mother? You're like, this has changed. What can you pinpoint to say these are the changes?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always been around, like my top values in life, the things that I value are my expressing my purpose, right? And that is number one on my list. That's always been number one on my list. That's why I do the work that I do. Me wanting to express my purpose meant that I couldn't fit into certain spaces. So I had to step into entrepreneurship and be a coach and do things in a way that allows me to have flexibility, own my time, and to continue to express self, whatever that looks like in each new season. So being a mom for me, now my priority list has changed, right? It's really not about me anymore, until my little one is at the stage where she can own her life. And yes, I think it's also about me to some extent, right? I still need to take care of myself. But the way that motherhood is, has been for me, it's been a thing of realizing that this person needs me to eat, to exist, to survive. And I think as mothers, we're so hard on ourselves because we're like, oh, I forgot about myself. But there's a human being who literally depends on you to survive. Of course, you're supposed to throw yourself into that. So it's changed me in the sense of that is now my priority, how I live my life, because I also value family, right? How I live my life is to make sure that I am present for my child, that I'm able to show up on the important moments. And as she grows older, that she knows that I'm there, as much as she's going to be her own person and live her own life. So that's what's changed. So now when I go to the office, I'm like, okay, I need to go in at this time so I can knock off, so I can spend 2 hours reading with my kid, walking to the park, taking a walk, whatever it is that I need to be done. It's also changed in the sense that I've always planned ahead, but there's a sense of purpose, I think, for me that's come along with being a mother, which I didn't expect to come from that, because I'm not one of those people that thought, oh my God, can't wait to have kids. I just thought I want a healthy family, right? It's not even about the kids. It's like, can we, whatever it is, it must be healthy. And that's always been my goal. So I spent a large time of my life doing the inner work. And now it's here. And I think for me, it's a sense of a drive, where I'm like, I want my child to have the best life. I wanted those things for myself either way. I had all the plans that I'm putting into action now either way. But now it's like, this is what I want for her. This is what I want to leave for her. This is my legacy. And not legacy in terms of I'm giving you this business to run, but what am I leaving you with in terms of, how you define yourself? What am I leaving you with in terms of the things that you value in life? So it really has changed the way that I operate, still a sense of purpose, but really there's a different way that I'm moving. I think it's more of a feeling that I feel, but how I express it is making sure that I express my purpose, I show up so that and find a balance that allows me to still be a great mom in the way that I want to be.
And the sentiments I normally read from people who are parents, especially mothers, they'd say, this child has slowed me down, my ambitions, my dreams, my goals. I can't do this like I used to anymore. Do you feel that?
No, I think one thing about having children, I think now our generation, the new generation is having children when they're much older. I had my child, I think I'm 34 now, so I guess I was 32. And the good thing about that is, that I was in a place where when she came, I was like, okay, and I'm a person that likes to plan. I think it's a default of being a coach. So I plan my things. I mean, on my vision board, when I was creating it years ago, I remember my husband and I were dating, and I was like, okay, we're going to date for 2 years. And then after 2 years, we're going to get married. Then we're going to travel the world. Then 2 years later, we're going to have a child. So according to that timeline, I was 28 at the time, right? I had at 32. That still fits my goals. I forgot about that. That was what I said. That's what I put on my vision board. Those are the plans that we made. But the universe, God, doesn't forget.
No, it doesn't.
So it still happens in that time. So for me, it's like, I welcomed it. I was like, I moved with acceptance, and I said, okay, she's here now. Therefore, this is how I'm gonna show up. And I rearranged my life. I mean, like I said, I was on maternity leave for the longest time. While I was still pregnant, I said, okay, what will allow me to feel at ease while I'm on my leave? Because remember, I work for myself. So I was like, okay, let's make sure we've got savings. Let's push, whatever work. When I started to be tired when I was pregnant, I was like, okay, let's slow down because this is where we're at now. This is my capacity now. So it really is, for me, I've never felt like my life has slowed down because once she came, I accepted her. I accepted her presence and what that meant for me. For you. And I also, because I always knew I wanted to be a present parent. So I'm not slowed down because I think something that people forget, you feel like you're being slowed down, but you're growing as a mother. So your career might be stilling a bit, but this area of your life, which is very important to you, is growing. So I think because we always think of growth as monetary, we think of growth we think of growth in terms of finances or your career.
Ambition, checklist.
Yes, but there are 7 areas of wellness. There's 7 areas of development, right? And one of those is family and social life. So there are seasons where you might be growing as a parent. You might be growing as an individual. Your finances are not changing. There are things that are not changing. But this one area you're perfecting. So I was in the season of mastering, you know, being a mom, stepping into it, right? And I've grown in that area. I can see that, you know, in the way that I show up for my child. I got married just before that. So we're still forming and figuring out, you know, the family dynamic. So I think, I give myself a lot of grace, and that's what allows me to say there's growth in this area. And yes, sometimes I think you want to express parts of yourself. So I would find little ways to do that. So I still continue to sell my books, but I always found that when I'd push myself in terms of work, while my little one was still small, I'd always burn out. So you just have to choose the path of least resistance, and also know that you'll get back to where you want to be. It's not like if I think of life and I think that I'm 34, people only retire when they're 65. That's a long time to be working. So slowing down for me, when I look at it, the bigger picture, I'm like, if I get this part right, the first 3 years of my daughter's life, and I'm present and I'm her main attachment figure, if she's going to be the K for the rest of her life, and this is the investment that I make, 3 years is nothing.
It's nothing.
We take 3 years to do our degrees.
And I think it's because maybe I'm seeing this pattern where as individuals, we think that everything that we want to achieve has to happen all at the same time. So if I'm building my career, if I'm getting married, I still need to be making money. I still need to be studying. I still need to be building and then my child needs to come, but my career must still stay where it was at while this child is here.
Too much pressure.
That kind of thinking is just, because I think people think they're running out of time. So I can't be having a child, or I can't be getting married. I can't be, what about my career? Thank you so much for that. I think I took it for myself. In the future, when it's time for me to have that nunu, I'm going to remember and say, this is the moment that you are in now. This is the era that you are getting into. But now I want to get into then the work that you do.
Yeah.
Right. And I want, and we read about it, we Google about it, but I want to hear it from somebody who actually does it professionally. How did you get then into this space, into this career? Because you said you've been doing it for 8 years now.
Yeah.
What was happening before the 8 years?
So I studied marketing. I have a degree in marketing and business. And prior to that, I guess I was studying and running. I had a business at the time. I remember it was a marketing agency. And while I was doing that, because once I graduated, I did a 6 months internship, and then I started my own company. And then I was doing that for some time while furthering my studies. And so I kind of fell into coaching because a friend of mine had done a coaching course, and then she wanted to practice on me. And when she did the session, I was like, I feel like this is what I should be doing. You know, when you get that feeling that this is where I should be. And then I followed the feeling. You know, it's important to follow the feeling while it's hot. And I then contacted a coaching school, and then I did the course in neurolinguistics programming, and then became a master life coach and a master neurolinguistics programming coach. And then I've been doing this work since. So I still ran the agency, and I used to do, I remember the company was called the Global Village, and we would move businesses from conception to being on the market. So it would be things like sometimes a client would come in and they would have an idea for a business, but they wouldn't know where to start. It would say, okay, let's refine it. Let's come up with a name. The entire process, like developing the product, building the website and getting it on the market, and other marketing services. So I did that for a few years, and then I always follow what I'm feeling, to be honest. I think we live in a world that I think things we can't follow that, but I always listen to myself and say, okay, what's working, what's not working. And at the time, I remember I was putting a lot of work into the agency, and I was mostly working with startups. And I just felt this, like, I remember feeling like I've given myself a 9 to 5. Like I've given myself this thing where I'm working so hard, but I'm not seeing the result of it. But in the coaching, I could see the growth. And then I think the break also came with COVID, right? Where I, in that year, decided to dive fully into the coaching because I was still doing the agency thing and all of that. But then coaching kind of started taking over, and I kind of followed that. And then I ended the relationships with the clients that I had and just moved into the coaching swiftly. And I remember even when I would work with a lot of business leaders, we would sit and it would be as if I'm coaching them. They'll be like, oh, Yvette, I need to pay you for this because this is actually a free coaching session. I needed this. And I think life kind of works that way, where you always get these nudges of where you're supposed to be, right? Life kind of affirms that you're the direction you should be going to. So I listened because my clients would always say, hey, actually, the questions you're asking, these are important things. I never thought of it that way. So that's when I was like, okay, let's move into the coaching. And I've been doing mostly the coaching for quite some time with a little bit, of the other stuff.
And I think, when something is your purpose, like you're saying, I saw the growth when I was doing coaching as opposed to when I think your purpose always grows. Like it feels effortless. Yes, obviously when you're building something, there's challenges, you tough times here and there, but somehow there's a sense of flow, and I feel like that's what you experience. I think I have the same experience because I also started in a completely different business. And then when I officially started building my academy, it was like, oh, okay, this is it, right? But then I want us to get into, your book is called Living Consciously.
I've got 2 books.
Right. Oh, you've got 2 books now.
Yes.
Okay, what's the other one?
Coming Home to Yourself.
That's
my
to
latest one.
That's the latest one. Oh, all right. So I know of the first one, right? What's that concept and where did it come from? Why living consciously?
So as a neurolinguistics programming coach, you often work with the unconscious mind, right? Because remember, there's a lot of stuff in our unconscious mind, such as our beliefs that we have about life, the thoughts that we have, and the thoughts that we have and the beliefs that we have determine our emotions, and our emotions determine our behavior. So when I'm in a session helping a client, I always tap into the beliefs that they have, which are often very unconscious. So we'll always say you bring the unconscious to the conscious, meaning that you're making the client aware of the thoughts that they have, aware of the impact that they have on their behavior. So I think because I work so much with the unconscious mind, right, with those parts of the client where a person will see a pattern in their life and they don't understand where the pattern comes from. They just see their relationships are not working out, whether it's romantic or friendships. They see their businesses, they start and then they end, or they see that they struggle with confidence, and this pattern just keeps occurring in different areas of their lives. So when I'm in that coaching session, then I would then make them aware of the pattern and make them aware of the beliefs and thoughts that create the pattern. So the only way to change your life is by changing your thoughts and your beliefs. Because if you don't change your thoughts and your beliefs, then your emotions will never change, and then your behavior will never change. So if anybody wants to change their life, they have to live consciously. And that's how the book came about. Because when I was thinking of a title, I was like, okay, I think living consciously works, because it is about being mindful, being conscious, being aware of what is not serving you, being aware of also how you can change that behavior. And that's what's in the book.
And then the coming home to self?
It was about that, just how do you return to yourself? Except that one I wrote specifically for women. So with Living Consciously, anybody can read it. I know those that have read it, it's like, they always say it's like 12 hours of therapy, but it's not in print anymore right now. And it was a deep book. I mean, anyone that's read it would always say, oh, I was crying, when I was reading it, because it brought up these things from my childhood that I wasn't aware of. So that book is really about that. So I thought, let me write something lighter. Let me write something that feels like coming home, something softer, something specifically for women. And so Coming Home was that. I wrote it before I went on my maternity leave, my very long maternity leave, and it's still in the market right now. Yeah,
and we live in a very fast-paced world. I mean, I'm 27 years old, but I feel like I've lived. I feel like I'm 100 years old, and I don't know when the shift happened. I feel like our grandparents were living day by day. Peacefully. So, and then with me, in a day, I have to run 5 businesses. Then I have to, do you get what I'm saying? How then do you say to modern people like us today, how do we then include living consciously in our fast? Because I mean, I can't get rid of the fast-paced world. It's here, but how do I then make sure that I'm living consciously then in this fast-paced world?
I think living consciously in a fast-paced world would mean slowing down. Like you're doing the opposite of what society is inflicting on you. Because if you're not slowing down, you're not pausing. If you're not pausing, you're just in auto mode. You're doing things and sometimes you don't even know why. And that's how you live consciously. You ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? Why am I running this business? Why am I going to this venture? Why am I going to this podcast? There must be an intention in that. So just, I think a lot of our generation, we have a lot of access to many different things, but that also comes with the weight of not knowing when to stop, right? And the weight of not always knowing how to balance because you have so many things. You know, it's like with our previous generation, you know, they could go to a library, read the book, go back home and sleep. But, you know, we have the entire library on our phones. So whenever you get a thought, you can go at midnight and Google it and find some answers, then go into a rabbit hole. Then the next thing you're on, you know, social media and it's the AMs and you're like, oh, it's 2 a.m. So it's important to stop and pause and ask why. There is power in the pause. There's power in pausing and really asking yourself the important questions and asking if why is this important? Why am I doing it? You know, and if it's aligned, sure. I think for me, even going back to the conversation we're speaking about earlier on, I try to create my life from a place of balance. And I also know, I mean, at your age, you know, I was around your age when I became a coach. I think it's also the thing of really just, I think sometimes you're finding your groove, so you have to try different things until you find what works. But it also really is about, I think, moving purposely in those things. You know, I think there's a lot of moving from a place of, you know, doing a lot, but sometimes we're not always productive in the things that matter. And then you find your energy is very scattered. So I think when we pause and say, okay, why am I running this business? What's my highest intention? Then you sit with that and and then you move to the next one. What's my highest intention and is it aligned? So I think just moving from a place of balance and self-awareness helps a great deal in that regard. And also just pausing, taking time to pause. Right. The world is not going to slow down, right? Everything is moving faster. Everything is becoming more accessible. But it is important to check in with yourself to see if the things that you're busy with are aligned, if you're making progress in them, and also just figuring out the balance in all of that. Yeah.
And I want us to then take it back to you speak a lot about trauma and childhood trauma and I have a relative who was saying, guys, you know this thing of we're always saying we have trauma. It's stopping us from working and getting to work because now when something goes wrong, you take it back to an excuse of, I have trauma. And so he's completely against us saying somebody has trauma. You know, you are not doing this because my mother gave me trauma or my father or my family. Can you unpack for us a little bit what trauma is and is it a real thing or is it just a made up concept that makes us shy away from actually doing the things that we're actually supposed to be doing?
Okay, I think I would define trauma as something that is overwhelming physically and emotionally for you, right? So something happened, it was very distressing for you to a point where you couldn't handle it emotionally. It was so if it's so overwhelming, and sometimes it's also not just one event, it's a series of events, right? So if something that seems seemingly small is happening consistently, for example, like your parents criticizing you as you're growing up, a person would say, okay, they were just hard on me, but, you know, it motivated me. But then you find as a person who perhaps had parents that criticized them a lot, then they start to have anxiety when they're older. And then the anxiety also becomes perfectionism. And then now they have the cycle of anxiety, perfectionism, and then they have burnout, right? Then they can't function. And that's where we say, okay, this is not serving you. And usually a person would then reach out to a therapist or coach or somebody that can help them to unpack all of their experiences. So it really is about how how the event had an impact on you, or the events had an impact on you emotionally, mentally, and physically sometimes. So that's how I define trauma. And I would say, yes, it's a very real thing. I think there is, obviously with a lot of information on social media, there is an overuse of the word, just like gaslighting and all these other words, right? But I would definitely say it's a very real thing. I mean, I think, for example, I would work with a leader who's in corporate, and would find that the reason they struggle to ask for help is because they couldn't ask for help in their childhood, right? Or they can't delegate because they can't trust people. So it's things like that where people don't see how the impact of certain things, and that might be linked to, oftentimes it's usually childhood, sometimes it's just a past experience, sometimes it's, I know, an exam that a person failed, and because they were a perfectionist, they always performed well, it hit them hard. It stuck with them. So that's where we come in, and there's different types of trauma, right? I can't list them, I don't know all of them, but there are some that are mild. I usually work with mild trauma, the things that I'm mentioning, or even things like childhood abuse. All of those things do count as trauma. And
And how do I know if my behavior is caused by maybe a trauma that I have? Maybe I'm not aware that I've got trauma, and then there's a particular behavior that I have. How do I then know I'm behaving like this because of my trauma, or I'm behaving like this because I'm just problematic? Like, if you know there's nothing wrong with you, you are just lazy. You are just, maybe those typical things, because, for example, I was told that, and maybe we can unpack this a little bit, and I think it will feel like a little bit of coaching, and maybe people to see how it is. I was, the previous other lady that I had in the podcast said that I'm an overthinker, right? And I question every little thing. Then I've heard somebody, because growing, and then I overthink, and people say I'm always thinking like I'm not good enough. So I go the extra mile to get something done. Whereas maybe if there's 5 other people next to me, if they just need to do 2, I'll do 10. Right? And someone was like, that's your trauma. That is why in your business. And I'm like, guys, that's not my trauma. You must just work and be great and be excellent. Do you get what I'm saying? So how do I then know that this is a trauma response, or this is just who I am? This is how I am. It has nothing to do with how I was raised.
I mean, there are personality traits that can develop as a result of trauma. So, for example, if these parents, when we were growing up, there were parents that would, if they were teaching their child to read, every time they'd get something wrong, they'd hit them. That's trauma. Because now you associate failure with punishment instead of failure with learning. Or not even failure, making mistakes.
Yeah.
That creates anxiety as you grow older. Now you say, it's the belief that you form from that experience is, it's not okay to make mistakes. I have to be perfect all the time. And when we think realistically, who's perfect all the time? So when you do make mistakes, you crash, right? So it's always about the impact that something has on you. So a lot of people would say, oh yeah, this made me excellent. The trauma, made me who I am today. Then I'll say, but can you have difficult conversations in your relationships without feeling like running away? Can you, or do you feel safe to have difficult conversations? Can you allow yourself to make mistakes? What emotions do you experience consistently? If you're consistently in an anxious state, clearly there's something. Your body is telling you that there's something that needs to be addressed. If you're constantly in a sad state, if you're consistently fearful, when you're thinking and motivating yourself, it's always, I cannot afford to. I don't have the room to fail. I have to. So it could be even things like growing up in a disadvantaged background, and you're like, I don't have the room to fail, because if I fail, I'm not going to be successful. If I'm not successful, I'm going back to my childhood where there's no food, where I don't know what tomorrow looks like.
So then those kinds of people become hard workers.
They're always burning out too, right? They're always burning out. And to a point where now, because if you've experienced burnout to the extent where you now need to take leave from work and you're struggling to recover, there's a lot of anxiety in that. There's a lot of deep sadness in that. There's a lot of physically the fatigue because you're carrying years of emotions that you haven't released, right? So I think it's a very thin line. Like you said, sometimes, someone is like, come on, get up and work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, get it together.
Yeah.
I'm more compassionate with my approach.
Yeah.
I would usually ask, okay, when did you struggle with procrastinating? When did you struggle to getting up? And they'd say, sometimes it's always like, I've never felt motivated in life. I've never had to work for anything. That's not a trauma, right? Sometimes it's just rewiring your behavior, changing the basis of the things that motivate you if they're not serving you. So it's not about, was this good? Was it bad? Is my personality right? Is it wrong? Is the way that I'm showing up serving me, right? If you're an overthinker, right, is that serving you? And since let's pretend we're in a coaching session, because you did say, right, people say you're an overthinker. They say that you think you're not good enough, and that's why you do certain things in a certain way.
Yeah.
So if I ask you now, when was the first time that you felt like you're not good enough? What would you say?
I think while I was still in school, I think it's a thing. I had those feelings while I was still in school growing up that I'm not good enough, especially to everyone in my environment, whether it was teachers, at home, friends, relatives. So I do remember those feelings where I felt like, hi, but now why am I the child that doesn't look like I belong here? Does that make sense? Like, every time when there's kids playing around, I'm always the one being picked on, that I'm the loud one. I'm the, you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think I do remember those feelings then. In adult, I don't know if now I remember them in my adulthood or what, but that was the time. And there was no first time, but my entire childhood felt like that everywhere I would go. Yeah.
So if, like I said, sometimes it's a consistent experience that you're having, right? And with a situation like that, it would be a thing of, now you have this belief that I don't belong, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, yeah.
Like a deep-seated limiting belief that's at the back of your mind. It's not conscious. And whenever you show up into spaces, you try to overcompensate because you're like, I want to fit in. I want to blend. I want to be accepted. Because when you're rejected growing up, whether it's at school, whether some people were bullied, some people went to schools where they were the only black person in the school. Some people went to schools where they came from a disadvantaged background and they had the opportunity to go into a privileged school. But again, they didn't feel like they fit in. So then you carry that belief that I don't belong. So because now you're a child, so your brain doesn't know how to process this experience. It thinks there's something wrong with you. That's why, for example, Oprah has that book, What Happened to You? Because how we process things when we're not supported in releasing them, the unconscious mind takes things personally. That's just how we're wired as human beings, especially if you don't have someone to guide you to let that go. So then you try to belong in every space that you go into. And that sometimes, shows up in different ways, right? So that would be like the reason. So it's not always a thing of I'm not good enough. There are a variety of limiting beliefs that are formed. And it's the basis of acting from that belief that I don't belong. And your brain is always thinking, how can I belong? It's very unconscious. You'll find your body responding to it. And sometimes maybe you go in a situation and you'll be like, shouldn't have done that. Maybe, that wasn't aligned. Or maybe next time I want to be myself, because I didn't feel I didn't show up fully as myself. Things like that.
And then how do I then start to become aware that this is, my behaviors are stemming out of trauma?
I think it really is like now, if you know that this is where this behavior comes from specifically, you know that it came from feeling left out at school, feeling not accepted, feeling like you don't belong, right? Then you now notice how it makes you react. So you say, how has the belief that I do not belong caused me to show up in my relationships? How has it caused me to show up in my friendships? How has it caused me to show up in my work and business? For example, with me, I used to believe that I'm not good enough. So how it showed up in my business is that I would undercharge, right? You wouldn't make the link, right?
Okay.
I wouldn't have boundaries because remember, I believe I'm not good enough. Therefore, now I must overly extend myself to keep my clients, right? Meanwhile, I'm qualified, the trust clients are coming in. And I always say, your clients always know your value.
Sure.
They know your value. It's you who doesn't. But as long as you do not know your value, people will continue to take.
Yeah.
So it starts like that. So you notice the areas in which the belief affects your life. Then you make a new decision. How am I choosing to show up? There's a lot of unconscious work that I do usually with my clients. It involves visiting the trauma, or the event that happened and caused them that belief, changing the belief unconsciously using methods such as hypnotherapy and timeline therapy, and then allowing them to show up as themselves now. Because sometimes when an event happens and you have that limiting belief, you stay stuck as that Kifile who was 10, 11, 12 years old and went into a space and felt like, oh, these people don't like me, or why is everybody making me feel like I'm too much, right? And it stays with you. So showing up as the version of yourself now is knowing that I am actually good enough. I do belong. Even if it's not with others, I belong within myself, right? And then now changing the way that you show up, making a conscious decision to say, I'm going to be myself in this space. I don't need to do too much. I am not too much, in fact, So for me, it's always about aligning yourself with your new belief system. If you believed you're not good enough, now that you know you're good enough, what are you going to do differently? And for me, it's a constant reminder to say, hey, girl, price accordingly, right? Your value in the market is increased. We price accordingly. We do not undersell.
Is there a shift that happens?
Yes, definitely. In the sessions, or even if you're seeing a therapist who has the right tools, or, a professional that can assist you, there is a shift that happens unconsciously. Right?
Oh, so you are rewiring the unconscious with the work that you do,
yes.
And then you start to see it.
And then you see it out. Yes.
Okay.
And
it's not like me telling you, tomorrow wake up, you feel and just be yourself.
I mean, anybody can go online and watch a video and hear that.
Yeah.
But the challenge right now is because that is not a conscious thing. It's unconscious. And that's why NLP comes in as a method. Therapists also have certain methods that help people to release the trauma. Because remember, trauma stays in your body. So that feeling of when you walk into a room that feels like I have to perform, or people are watching me, that stays in your body. So when you heal the past event, now you're able to show up as now, not as 11, 10, 9, 4, 5-year-old, Kifile or Yvette. So it is a lot of unconscious work, but you can also start to reinforce the new beliefs that you want to act on. You can start to say, you know what? I stepped into this romantic relationship from a point of believing that I'm not good enough. And I thought that they would give me that. Therefore, I am changing my mind. And from then now on, I am going to have boundaries. And it's going to be hard because you haven't done the unconscious work. But with consistency, you can also rewire and reprogram your mind.
Interesting. I want us to then go back to the conversation of undercharging. And I think a lot of business owners do that. And you're saying it's like it's a trauma thing.
Not always. Sometimes it's just you don't know your value. You don't know your value. You don't know how to price in the market.
It's like a very tricky one where you're thinking.
I'm just saying I was undercharging because I didn't know my value, and that was because I genuinely didn't think I was good enough.
So for business owners or entrepreneurs, how they show up, you'd say then go do the inner work of. Because I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I can tell you in the work that I do, I go above and beyond. And sometimes I don't get why I go above and beyond. And then I find that there are other entrepreneurs who don't go above. They do the bare minimum. So what is that mindset?
I think sometimes the performance can come from just excellence, which is okay. Like if it's again that question of, is it serving me to go above and beyond? Why am I doing it? Am I doing it because I'm so scared and anxious that I'll lose this client? I'm so scared that maybe what I'm doing is not enough. So sometimes you're just an excellent person, you're disciplined, and this is how you show up, and that's okay. But other times are you doing it from fear? That's when you know that maybe this is a behavior I don't want to continue, or not even if we don't look at the trauma and stuff. Is it serving me to go above and beyond?
So there is good trauma and there is bad trauma, right?
Like, so there's nothing wrong with excellence. I think it's always about why you're doing something and if it's serving. And if it's not serving you, why continue doing something? If you want to be excellent, there's nothing wrong with that.
And then because I'm also a coach, a business coach, and I train a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of them talk about, and it's a concept that's being thrown about, we live in a world, I have imposter syndrome, right? I feel like a failure. I'm struggling in my business. What would you advise people to start doing to get over those kinds of feelings?
So imposter syndrome is usually because of the belief I'm not good enough and I don't belong. Usually people that struggle with imposter syndrome have had some sort of a past experience. Sometimes it's things like, so there's those two beliefs, right? I'm not good enough could be or even I'm not qualified enough, right? So when it comes to imposter syndrome, I always say validate it. That's the first thing you're going to do.
So I say, yes, I am not good enough. Oh, okay.
No, you don't say, no, you're not good enough. You validate why it's there.
Oh, okay.
For example, sometimes it's you're trying something for the first time. You just got qualified or you're the only black person in the room. So the imposter syndrome is valid, right? You feel like, I'm the only black person, I'm the only young person.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, this is where these emotions are coming from. But then you say, but that doesn't change that I deserve to be in the room, right? I have worked hard, I'm qualified enough. And the fact that I'm in the room means I deserve to be in the room. So sometimes imposter syndrome is that you don't always have to try to override things and say, no, I'm not feeling this imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's saying, where are these emotions coming from? Looking around and say, oh, I'm the only female engineer in the space.
It's not that there's a problem with you.
It's the environment.
I see that shift.
Or I've just got this promotion. I've never done this before. And I feel an imposter syndrome, even though I'm qualified, I have the skills, but this is the first time I'm doing this. Because being aware and asking yourself the right questions means you get the right type of support. So when you realize that the imposter syndrome is also coming from not knowing enough or the fear of not knowing enough, you ask yourself, what do I need? Maybe you need support. Maybe you need a mentor in the space. Maybe you need somebody you can bounce thoughts off with. Maybe you need to watch some videos on YouTube, read some old articles for your work, and that will increase your confidence, right? And then there's other things where, like I said, I'm not good enough and I don't belong, which are linked to childhood experiences. Being treated differently from your siblings can create imposter syndromes. Being treated like you're less than in a classroom. Things like that, so those things can also create the imposter syndrome. And if that's the case, then you address the childhood wounds that you have so that the imposter syndrome doesn't keep showing up with every successful milestone that you have, because that's when it shows up. It tells you that that you don't belong to you don't deserve to be in the room. It tells you that people are going to catch you out. It tells you that you're going to lose everything that you have. And it creates so much anxiety as well. So I think it's just working on it from using those tools.
And what's your take on failure or rejection in business, basically?
My take on failure in business is that there is no failure, there's only feedback. And if you operate from that space of knowing that you're getting feedback. When your clients, you're not getting clients as feedback saying you need to try a new marketing strategy. When you have conflict with a client, it's feedback that maybe there's a part in your business process or that you need to articulate better. Maybe you need to have certain clauses on your invoices as well to say no refunds, right? So there's always feedback. And it's important that we don't beat ourselves down. We look at the feedback that life is giving us in our business, in our relationships. But specifically for business, I know my first business was a clothing line many, many years ago. And I remember one of the lessons that I took from that when I closed it, and it had the cutest outfits. Some people still have them. And I remember I learned about quality control because I realized because I'm not making the garments myself, I lose control of the quality, which is a big thing for me. So I learned that if I'm going to continue this business, I need to make sure I can control the quality of the clothes and create systems around that. So there's always lessons, if you've undercharged, the lesson is that you need to charge more. You can always renegotiate with your clients. I think people are so scared of failure, but that's where you learn the wisdom that you need to be more sustainable. And I think it's always better when you learn them earlier. Like when you're in the first 5 years of your business, rather learn them with 5,000 than learn them with $1 million.
No, I agree to that because in my business, I had recently had a CCMA case and I laughed at it, not because I'm thinking it's cool, but I laughed because I was like, actually, this had to happen with just 2-3 employees, as opposed to when now I'm a 500-man company and now I've got more to lose than now. So I laughed at it because I looked at it as what is it teaching me? And I like the fact that you are saying rather see it as feedback. So for me, it was feedback that my HR policies are not looking good.
You need to work on them.
I need to work on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I want to check if this was your last thing that you would teach to people in this world, right? Around healing, around being balanced, around living consciously, taking care of themselves. What would be the final thing that you say to them?
Sure. So much pressure. The final thing.
Like, yes, if this is the one thing that everybody must know that comes out of your career.
Sure. I think for me, I've always been an advocate of just being yourself.
Okay.
I think we all come here with a unique offering, and that offering needs to exist. It needs to be expressed through you as a person. And that's how I've lived my life. And that's the thing that allows me to be myself. And I think that's quite freeing to know that. And also another thing would be I never attach myself to my roles. So some people say, Yvette is a life coach. Yeah. And then they want to experience a life coach. I'm like, man, I'm just expressing who I am through the coaching. Tomorrow I could be a hip hop dancer. Oh, yes. You don't know. I could be a jazz musician. You really don't know. So I think it's just always honoring yourself, living in accordance with your truth. And I think just trusting yourself. A lot of what I've created for myself has been through trusting myself and being myself. And that's, I think, where my power lies, to be honest. That's just having faith in myself. That's
and
all.
how do I know if I'm being myself? Because I think
self changes too, but it's just, I think, just honoring yourself, right? If you're being self, it means it also goes back to then how do you define self, right? And what you attach self to. So for me, self is just, I'm showing up, I'm myself. I come with a history of Ndimovenda. You know what I'm saying? I come with a history, I'm a woman, black woman in this time and age, and there's things that those things mean to me. I'm also, then I have my spiritual background, and then my spirituality says I'm love, because God is love. And it's just about really expressing that, whatever that you call what self is made up of, that you are living in alignment with that. But self can also change, right? Obviously, self can also change. So when it changes, also realign and live in the truth that aligns with who self is. That's why for me, for example, like I said, when it was season to be a mom, I was like,
that's who I
adios.
And
that's what I'm doing now. I'm not attached.
Yeah.
I'm not attached to my role as a coach or a speaker, and I can do this freely because I
and
don't lose my purpose or sense of self by being with my child. I'm expressing self by loving this human like crazy.
And then with people who maybe they're in relationships and maybe there's a particular way in which they behave, and they will say to people, but that's how I am. I'm just being myself. What's your take on that? Because I think people will do things and then make an excuse out of, but that's who I am. Take it or leave it.
The power question is always, is it serving you? That's who you are. So if you say that's who you are, you shout at people in relationships and then they leave. Do you want the relationships? Are you happy with relationships where all your relationships end because of the same issue? If you struggle to communicate and you disengage, you withdraw, you ghost people, is it serving you? If you're in relationship with people and you find that the areas where you're struggling and it's not serving you, then why wouldn't you change it? So it always boils down to that power question. Is it serving me? However it is, whether it's, there's so many things that show up in relationships, but ask yourself, is how I am showing up serving me? And if it's serving you, sharp, continue.
Then continue. You're happy
but if it's not, change your mind.
Change.
You're happy with being someone who can't build relationships because you don't want to work on your communication style. You say, this is who I am. This is how I grew up. This is how things were done in my household.
I guess that's trauma again now showing up.
So I think it's always good to have a vision of the life that you want for yourself and see if who you are is aligned with that. And if it's not serving you, if it's not helping you reach your goals, then change your mind and do things differently.
I think that is so powerful. I think, in as much as I'm still learning, there are a couple of things that I've also, because I've done therapy, and with my husband, when we started dating, I come from a family where my family, they can just speak and say whatever, like they don't filter and think, how is this going to make the next person feel? And when I started dating my husband, who's my husband now, I was also like that. And he started to notice those patterns in me, and he would be like, baby, you communicate like this, and I've also been to your family, and I see it's normal for you and your family to communicate like that. And with what you're saying, it's so important, because then I did the work on saying, I looked at myself and said, this is not how I want to communicate. This is not how I want to talk, not only to my husband, but to people in general. Like, so I did a lot of that work in myself, and I started being very conscious in how I speak. And so I think what you're saying is it serving you? Like, do you get? And I could have easily said, but that's how I was raised. That's how we speak at home. So I'm joking. Don't take it serious or whatever.
You're too sensitive.
Do you get what? Exactly. So that's a very eye-opening. But then, because we are not a one-man island, I don't live alone by myself in this world. There's other people that I always interact with. We have people that we're always interacting with. Is it always me that I have to check? What if the problem is just with the other person? How do we then engage with external people that we can't control, that come with their own traumas, that come with their own problems, their own challenges? And because you know how people, there's this saying, it's not you, it's me. That vice versa. Like,
yeah. Usually it's when they're ending the relationship.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes, for example, I think it stems also from maybe this is my trauma, I don't know, where when people would do things to me that were not sitting well with me, that would make me sad or heartbroken, I would always need to say, maybe I need to do the work on myself. Maybe I did something that provoked this. I would never see anybody having done me wrong. And there's always been things, no, maybe there must have been something. You also played a role.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So how do you then interact with such?
I think there's a question that I ask people when I'm coaching them. It's, what's your contribution to this, and what's the other person's contribution? Because I think it can coexist. Sometimes we are contributing, sometimes the other person is at fault, and it's not black and white. Sometimes it's both people. Sometimes it's, hey, you called me a name and now I'm saying whatever I want, as a retaliation. But both the behaviors then aren't okay. So I think one, it's always internalizing things to think that there's something wrong with you. That's a trauma response. So it's not always your fault. You always have to be objective and look at, okay, what contributed to me feeling this way? Because you can work into a space and say, I think I'm just too sensitive. Or to say, but these people, are they speaking with kindness and compassion? Are they speaking respectfully? Okay, I'm responding to that, and that's okay. So there has to be a balance in the way we perceive things and process them. And believing that you're always the wrong one in the situation, that definitely is not healthy. And I think healing also brings you back to a worldview that is very balanced, where you can look at people's behavior and understand how they make you feel. Because someone that believes there's something wrong with them experiences the world through that, even when other people are doing things to them. So you move from relationship to relationship, and let's say you're always getting cheated on, for example, right? And you say, it means there's something wrong with me, right? Why does everybody cheat on me? So what I would say to that person, if I'm working with them, is this is not your fault. You're not in control of how people show up. You are, however, in control of how you respond. So when the first cheating happened, did you set boundaries? Right? Did you say, I'm not standing for this? This is my boundary, and therefore I'm acting in alignment with this boundary. So it will be things like that, right? Where we say, okay, how can we navigate the world in a way that this doesn't happen again, right? With the wisdom from the experiences that you've had. But again, you're still not responsible for them taking that behavior, because they shouted at you, right? They did that. So everybody is responsible for themselves, and you're responsible for your behavior. So you have to navigate that with self-awareness and also environmental awareness. And that's important.
Sure. And then you're also a business owner, and this podcast is really for other entrepreneurs and business owners. But I think this conversation is for everyone, you know, what we're speaking about. But what are some of the challenges, this is about you and your business, that you've experienced in your business? Like something that somebody, when they look at you, they wouldn't think you would go through that as a business owner. And this is really for the viewers to really be inspired and to say, I can see myself, I'm not the only one experiencing such problems. If Yvette has gone through it, then that means it's normal. It's okay.
I think a common one would be unpaid invoices. I used to have that problem.
Yeah.
And then I made a rule for myself that no money, no work. Right? Unless the money is in my bank account, I don't show up for the event. Unless there's been an agreement. And also just improving processes, like I said, making sure there's a proper agreement to say this is the work that's going to be done, this is where it's going to be done, and all of that. So I think that was the main issue, because I think in entrepreneurship, if there's no money in your bank account, that's very stressful.
Have you ever taken a client because you were desperate for the money, or have you been at a point where I don't have money now, so you would end up taking just to keep afloat?
In the past, I think, yes, that's why I said, I used to charge based on, sometimes you charge based on need, especially when you're starting up, and you also charge based on, that belief that I'm not good enough. So I used to charge in that regard, where I'd overextend myself, I'd be working late nights, but the money was not matching the effort that I was putting into it. So for me, I had to say, okay, let's set the rates, and let's also re-strategize in terms of reaching the right target audience that can afford my services. So I've had multiple business lessons. I'm trying to think, because I'm at a space where I'm very comfortable in the space that I'm in, and I've learned a lot of lessons that allow me to navigate any business that I start. I'm always able to, like, I do it right, in the sense that I don't have the usual struggles, which is paid invoices. Maybe in terms of, sometimes it's also things like when you're onboarding your team, making sure you train them, right? Because I think a lot of leaders or business leaders assume that, oh, you have this qualification, you can do the work.
Yeah, you must.
And I think that's the worst mistake ever, regardless of a person's coming in with a PhD, a degree, or they've worked at a similar company.
Of that.
It's one of the worst mistakes. And then you send them running, they make mistakes, and then you're hard on them. So as a business leader, and when I do my leadership coaching sessions, I'll ask the leader, what's your contribution to this problem? Because it's so easy to come and say, this person can't do this person can't do this. I'm like, okay, did you onboard them? No. Okay, did you train them? Did you see what support they needed in the first month or 3? Did you ask them that frequently? Did you create structures and processes for, if they're struggling with this, go to this person. If you're struggling with this, go to HR. So there's so many systems that we need to put in place, right, to make sure that a person is supported when they come into the company. And I used to make that mistake, but I don't make those assumptions anymore in terms of assuming a person knows the job just because they have the qualifications or the background. You have to start not from scratch, but say, I'm onboarding you, give the person, create safety for questions to be asked, because entrepreneurs don't have capacity a lot of times, especially when you're in the startup phase of your business. So you find yourself now frustrated because you want everybody to move at your pace. Because as Yvette, you pick up quickly, you learn fast, you move quickly, you've built a system. But that person hasn't caught up. And even worse, they're probably scared of making mistakes or they're still figuring out all the systems in the organization. So to avoid mistakes, we create processes and we make sure we onboard, we make sure there's support, and we check in and we create safety. Otherwise, then that's where the problems start. And of course, sometimes, people are not competent enough for the position, which just does happen, but we make sure that we cover our bases in terms of at least some of the things. So those are some lessons that I've learned. But I think, now I'm definitely at a level, even though I'd taken a break, I'm kind of coasting through it because I know the systems. I know how to advertise my services. I know how to, I have systems in place again for invoicing. I have systems in place for, whatever business processes that need to take place. So a lot of things don't take me long. They don't drain me. So
it's that legwork that has to be done in the beginning.
Do the legwork, build the systems. One thing I can tell you, build systems and processes. Yes, systems, processes, policies. And ask for help when you need it. Like, I think entrepreneurs, we are very hard on ourselves. Like, a lot of people that are starting up in their businesses tend to be very hard on themselves. You want to be perfect at everything. But it's okay to go and ask somebody for advice and say, hey, what do you do when you struggle with this with your team?
Because we have this mindset that we need to appear as though we've made it, we know it.
And you know everything. You must pretend you know everything. And you must be perfect at everything. But you're not going to. And when you notice that you don't know everything, go call somebody. Call somebody and find out, what do you do when you're stuck in this area, so that they can advise you better.
Because you are a life coach. You probably have your own life coach as well, or do you
I've
coach
got
yourself?
A therapist, I've got a life coach, I've all of them.
Because I think that's another mindset that, for example, I'm also in the entrepreneurship space as a business coach, trainer, and a lot of the people that I work with think that just because I can teach them something, I don't experience that challenge.
Yes.
So when I say, no, I actually also experience that challenge, but how? When you are the one teaching us all of this. And then I tell them, no, I also have my own business coach. I also have my mentors that take me through this journey. So I think it's another mindset that just because you're a marketer, you're good in marketing, doesn't mean you can. That's why they say, I can't market my own business. Therefore, you...
I can though.
No, I'm just saying that it's like a doctor can perform surgery on themselves and all of that. But it's always good to have that external help to say,
support.
Sometimes I feel stuck. Maybe I need to speak to a professional. Even though I'm good at this is my forte, but maybe another professional that can help me. And then, because we're nearing the end, for people that want to start business or have started businesses, they are one leg in, one leg out, and they're like, I don't know if I really need to do this. I want to give up. What good news can you tell them about entrepreneurship and building your own business?
Sure. I would say stick it through. If it's something that you want, and I would say love, because I think it's good to do things that you're a little bit, you don't have to always love them all the time, but you have to be interested in it.
Oh, love
to make
that.
It makes it easier if you're interested in it. If you're not, you lose your flow much quicker.
Yeah.
But I would say stick it through. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of time and experience. People start businesses and then within a year they've given up. And the business that you do start might not be the final thing. It might be the stepping stone to the final thing. So just stick it through, be consistent, ask for help, make sure you're solving the problems with the right solutions. Because sometimes you feel stuck because you're not solving the problem with the right solutions. So I think speaking to a business coach, speaking to sometimes a leadership coach, speaking to a life coach if it's personal, because the personal also affects the business.
Your business. I can
how
agree to that.
If you don't know how to communicate, affects your business. If you're scared of disappointing people, a lot of things.
You end up giving discounts and doing work for free.
So really notice those things and realize that there is often a solution to everything. You're not the first person to experience that problem, right? Yvette has experienced it, Kifile has experienced it, and it's just about getting the right type of solutions for it and the right type of support. And I'd say really work on your mindset.
Yeah.
Because again, your business will only be as good as you are as an individual.
Yeah.
So if you want a thriving business, work on your mindset and make sure that you're able to problem solve and to work through things instead of just sitting and being helpless, or being scared and avoiding clients. Work on your mindset, work on yourself so that you have the right skills to deal with the experiences you have in your business, and you will thrive.
I like that keyword, like learn to problem solve. Because literally everything is about how do you solve it. Like and when we say problem solving, it's not like it's a bad thing. It could even be a good thing. Yeah. What's the solution to this good thing? You have a big client.
Yes.
How do I maneuver
Too
this?
many clients in the business.
Too many clients in the business. Do you get what I'm saying? So learning to problem solve. What has been your biggest highlight in business, so that they can see that one day I can also get there? That you never thought would happen, but it happened.
I think about everything. There's nothing I didn't think would happen. But I'd say a few highlights. I think being an international coach for me, like knowing that I have clients from all over the world. Just knowing that I have clients from all over the world, for me, that's a big thing. A big highlight also, I think, my 2 books. I think I really did visualize that it's something that I wanted for myself, and I followed through, and that's happened for me. And I don't know, I just appreciate the fact that I can get up every day and do what I love. For me, it's moved beyond being about the money. For me, it's about just doing something that I wake up and I can enjoy. And owning my time, that's a win for me. Because I really don't, when I look at highlights, I think for me, it's just having the exact life that I imagined for myself, with the flexibility, with the income. Those are the things that I wanted for myself. So the highlight is that achieving my goals and being exactly where I want to be right now. And I think I'm just really looking forward to what more I can create. So I hope people stay tuned to my socials so that they can see, because there are 2 projects I'm working on now. And one of them has to do with coaching, the other doesn't. So I'm actually looking forward to also being able to express those and see how those go. So,
That's amazing. You are so demure, and I think because you're a life coach, you've done work on yourself as well. And I'm sure it's work that doesn't end. Anything you'd like to say to me, or you'd want me to know while in closing?
Well, thank you for having me. I do appreciate the space. I appreciate your energy and the way that you showed up, just being yourself, very bubbly.
Thank you so
Very
much.
bubbly, and it works so well because this is a very, you need someone who can talk to people.
Yeah.
So I really just appreciate you for having me, for reaching out, for doing the thing, because you said that,
Yes.
you reached out. And you're
Yeah, I was like, I'm shooting my shot
Exactly.
here.
So I'm glad you shot your shot because it's
Yeah.
the right time. I'm
Yeah.
getting back into work and all of that. So I just want to express gratitude for you having me here and holding space for me and allowing me to also be myself. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Final words to the audience or the viewers?
Final words to the viewers. Just be yourself. Trust the process. Remember that you are good enough. The things that you want to create in your life can come to life.
Yeah.
You just have to do the inner work and make sure that the beliefs that you have about yourself match the reality that you want. And know that there is nothing that cannot be worked through in life. And you're not the first one to go through it. So there's always somebody to speak to about it. And trust yourself. You got this.
Thank you. I took that for myself. I feel like I was in a life coaching session because some things but we don't take the time to also reflect. So I'm going to go home and think back and say, my childhood trauma, how is it still showing up in how I'm running and doing my business? But her name is Yvette Aloe. You can find her on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok. I'm sure you can still get her book, her latest book, Coming Home to Self. So if you go on her social media, she's very responsive. She will definitely help you. Go book a life coaching session with her as well. If you feel like, I need to also transform my life because how I'm behaving, how things are happening in my life is not serving me. It's not what I want. So I think the biggest takeaway for me is everything that you do, is it serving you? And if it's serving you, great. If you feel, no, it's not serving me, then go do work on yourself. Please do subscribe, do comment, let us know what your favorite parts were, what you liked. Like and also share with your friends and community because information means nothing if we don't share it amongst ourselves. And go implement any of the things that you listened to, you heard today, and start seeing the change that can happen in your personal life and in your business life. Until next time, bye-bye.